I'm raising the issue together with my colleague Deputy Chambers of what's been happening or not happening at all in relation to Pelletstown Educate Together National School and the trials and tribulation that the school, the parents, the children, the staff are undergoing because of the failure of this government in its third year to actually build the permanent school. We have had a threat that the school was going to be moved to different temporary accommodation yet again. I do know that, I suppose in the context of the recent elections, that threat was removed some days ago. And obviously the parents are relieved. But let me tell you, the parents do not intend to allow their children to be bused or to be allocated some other temporary accommodation. This school is now in its fourth year. A temporary site has been identified, and the resolution has been that myself and my colleague here in the Dáil suggested, which was to ensure that the developers who own the site would simply extend the lease right into the middle of next year. That's now been confirmed. But Minister, I want you to confirm that this school will not be asked to move premises again, either in whole or in part, until such time as the permanent school building has been provided. I want you to confirm at what stage the arrangements with Dublin City Council in relation to the planning for the permanent school site, what stage they're at now, and when can we expect to see diggers on the site, as we have now been promised numerous times, for the actual permanent accommodation? This school doesn't need any more temporary moves. It needs a permanent home to carry on the work of educating the children by a dedicated staff and the work of the dedicated parents of this school community, which is a very vibrant school and place for learning.
Deputy. And I propose to address the question raised on behalf of Minister McHugh, who unfortunately is unable to be here due to other commitments. And I want to thank Deputy Burton and Deputy Chambers for raising the matter. It gives me the opportunity to set out the position in relation to the accommodation needs of Pelletstown Educate Together National School. As the two deputies have already pointed out, the school is currently in interim accommodation at Ashtown Road in Dublin 15 and currently has sufficient accommodation. And in September of 2019, the school will require additional interim accommodation. And the planning application for the additional interim accommodation was lodged with Dublin City Council on the 25th of February this year, and the notification of decision to grant was received from the local authority on the 18th of April this year, and the final grant of permission is awaited. The tender process for the required additional interim accommodation commenced in parallel with the planning application, and in addition, the permanent site acquisition process for the school is now complete. A planning application for the permanent accommodation for the school was lodged in January of this year. A request for additional information received from the local authority was responded to on the 26th of April this year, and a decision is now awaited. Following a receipt of planning permission, the project will then proceed to tender. Provided no issues arise, it is envisaged that the permanent accommodation will be completed in September 2020. In relation to the need for the school's interim accommodation to move from its current location at Ashtown Road in February of 2020, I can advise the following. As previously stated, the school's interim accommodation is located on a privately owned site. The landlord had required the department to confirm that the school would vacate the property at the end of January 2020. And again, the deputies already confirmed that on Monday the 27th of May, the landlord contacted the department to advise that they had carried out a review of their business plan and their strategy for the site, and are now agreeable to extending the lease termination date from the 31st of January 2020 to the 30th of June 2020. So thankfully, there is no longer a need for the school to move to alternative interim accommodation in January of next year. The position in relation to the permanent accommodation for the school has already been outlined above, and the matter will be kept under review. The department is in regular contact with and holds monthly meetings with the school's patron body, Educate Together, in relation to this project and a number of other projects under their remit, and will continue to keep the school's patron body fully informed of all progress.
Thank you. Supplementary, 1 minute, Deputy Burton.
Thank you. Minister, I'm speaking now on behalf of the children and the parents in the school and the staff. Can you now, on the floor of the Dáil, commit to the statement you have in your script, that provided no issues arise, it is envisaged that the permanent accommodation will be completed in September 2020? And will you further commit that if there is any slippage in relation to that date, that you and your department will ensure that no temporary further movements are required for the school? This school has been in an uncertain situation now for 4 years. 4 years is a long time in the start-up life of a school and in the life of a child attending primary school. And what we want to do is to take the uncertainty and the fear that the basement experience and the busing experience will no longer occur. We're assuming that the owners of the site are the developers of the site. The developers of this site are probably making many, many millions of euro on the construction of housing, apartments, houses on the site. I cannot see why the department cannot exercise its role in education of providing schools where a large amount of accommodations have been built. And I want you to commit to no further disruption to the school until they get the permanent school, as you've now promised, September 2020.
Thank you. And again, thanks to both of you for raising this issue. The department's building unit works exceptionally hard under incredible pressure to deliver on probably the greatest school building programme that this country has ever undertaken. If you consider for a moment that in the first quarter of 2011 we had the most births per capita in the history of this state, that demographic bubble is now working its way through the education system, and consequently there is incredible pressure being placed upon the department's building unit to deliver schools across this country, particularly in locations where we have seen very significant population increases over the last 5 to 10 years, Pelletstown being one such location. The department does not now intend to cause anxiety or angst, or hasn't in the past, to the school community, is working closely in partnership with the school community to deliver this school. In my earlier response, I confirmed that it is envisaged that the permanent accommodation will be completed in September of 2020. The department has also engaged in extensive negotiations with the owner of this privately owned site to ensure that the lease would be extended to the 30th of June 2020, thus allowing for the school community to remain exactly where they are. Over and above that, neither of my two Oireachtas colleagues, if they were sitting in this side of the House, could give any commitment over and above that. In terms of the certainty, there are issues that may arise through the planning process. Nobody can foresee those, but you do have the absolute commitment of the building unit and of the Department of Education, and indeed of this government, to do all that we can and within our power. And I stress that, within our power, to ensure that this school is delivered on time and no further stress or anxiety shall be caused to the pupils, to the parents and to the teachers of that school.